Okay, the first item is A, facilities discussion.
So
Who's gonna lead us through this?
Lori is on here. So maybe Lori will step in, and Kirk is here too, so.
Right, and in your packet as well as on paper in front of us, you have multiple documents. We have a resolution calling a special election. We have the proposed official ballot. Why do I have two of those?
My bad, I printed them twice. No, 6:30 a.m. So.
And then an initial resolution for general obligation school building bonds and a notice of special election. Could someone review with us which of these documents need our approval?
Okay, so. Is Lori? Okay, so to be approved, they have to be adopted in this order: the initial resolution and the resolution calling the special election. So prior to the meeting, we've been working with ICS and with PFM in order to create documents so that you would have them in front of you. It does not mean that these have to be, how it's going to be presented. This is just, we wanted something in place, not to delay it, whatever you decide to move forward. So if somebody makes a motion for an initial resolution and a second, then you can have discussion on that. And obviously you can make changes if you want to make changes on that. So
Okay, so I have turned mine apart and I now have the initial resolution on top. And then if that is approved, then we would need to approve the resolution calling for the special election.
Correct.
And the ballot and the notice are for information only and we do not require our approval.
right, so the ballot is approved as an attachment to number 2. So if you call the special election, then the ballot would be part of that. It's just an attachment, and the notice of election doesn't need board election, or does not need board action. It's just included for your information. So if you choose to move forward with this initial resolution with the wording the way that it is, then everything else will just, be attached to or be part of that. So it'll just kind of filter down through. So,
Okay.
And Anna, I can just say too, then after if it is approved, then that would all need to be published in the local paper. So that would happen right after the meeting, that would get sent into the paper.
All right.
like PFM, and I mean, a lot of this is on in the bond. It's all been laid out for us, so we know the exact steps. So, so from the board, you just have to make a decision, if you want to do that. Yeah, right. Just that, like I said, so if somebody wants to make a motion and second the initial resolution, then you guys can have a discussion on.
Okay, so you have before you a proposed initial resolution for general obligation school building bonds. For purposes of discussion, I would entertain a motion to approve that initial resolution as it is presented to us today.
I'll make a motion.
Sire moves to approve the initial resolution for general obligation school building bonds. Is there a second?
Second.
Day seconds. All right, let's proceed with discussion.
Okay, Kirk, maybe Lori, looking to you guys.
Well, I think Lori had talked about,
Okay.
I mean, I wasn't involved in how you get the dollar amount.
Well, so just based on after the last meeting, I know Anna had circled back with board members and just talked about, where you guys are, where you wanted to kind of go with the project scope and the cost and the number of questions. So what it landed on was one question. It's for $14,840,000. And that includes the high school HVAC, the adding the bathrooms to the second and third floor of the high school for ADA compliance. You have underground sewer piping, those sections would be included, and then upgrades and renovations to your kitchen space. Those were the items that were included in the one question. The budget also, it accounts for, beings that the classrooms are not in there. There was a little bit extra cost to do the bathrooms because some of the cost originally had been part of the classroom renovation piece. So that increased a little bit. And then note also that the cost includes the sale of bonds. So there is dollars associated with that, and that comes directly from PFM. So we listed, what the project cost, all in project cost would be for the district. And then PFM developed what the ballot cost would be. Because that would be what it would take to complete the whole project with bond sale. The language is part of bond council items in there that list the legal piece of it on what's listed is in there and is set. So we don't get to make that decision, but we were able to word the project description as needed. So that was something that could be modified. And what we landed on aligns with some core messaging that the team has been working on as you go out into the community and talk about the plan. So that's how that's where that landed.
Does anyone have any questions for Lori, or I guess for who's with PFM?
I don't think Anna's here. No. Yeah.
All right.
Just
Any questions for Lori?
so it would be what this is asking for is one question encompassing all the things that are listed, and you can see those on the ballot. So this ballot is set. It has to be like this. So everything that's listed on that ballot, and it's the mills that are set on there and the dollars.
Okay, so if I last night reviewed our original concept that we started presenting to the public for feedback was nearly $17 million. 16.981 is what the data I found. Our revised plan, after receiving input and reevaluating, our concept is now 14.84 million, which is a reduction of about 2.1 million, a reduction of 12.6% in response to feedback that we got from stakeholders. Just to summarize, help me if I'm state something wrong, Lori. The main things that we changed to reduce by that 2.1 million, we scaled back the kitchen cafeteria, the space. So the kitchen would be renovated. The cafeteria would simply get some cosmetic improvements. We removed all of the interior improvements discussed or proposed for the high school, including lockers, doors, classroom improvements.
Yes.
And we did include the 2 ADA restrooms, which were not really part of our initial proposal, were they?
They not really. And that came out from that first survey back in September. And that's where that's how that kind of got folded in on making that part of the plan.
And then you also, if I remember correctly, tweaked that inflation factor. You had a 10% inflation, I think, for most or all building expenses or building costs, and you reduced that, and you're feeling comfortable with that reduction?
Yes. Yep. So we reduced that a little bit now that we know more of a timeline, so that if, we're going out in March, now we can project, okay, it'll be bid, next fall, and we feel comfortable that now we're within a year. So we had the ability to reduce that. I think I landed at 7. So it's not like it went away completely, but it did have a little bit of savings.
All right, and then I think the biggest single item that the board sort of wrestled with was the windows and of the high school windows, and whether or not we should include those in the overall project scope at this time. So, and this resolution includes all the windows in one single question. Please help us understand, what synergies there might be in doing the windows all at the same time as the HVAC, because presumably if we don't do the windows at the same time, they will need to be done at some time in the future, whether it's 5 years, 10 years. And at the very least, there will be inflation on windows that if we don't do them in 2025, it will be done in 2030, and they'll probably cost more by 5% per year. What other synergies might there be to do those windows now with an entire project rather than waiting 5 or 10 years?
It aligns really well with the new HVAC, that is part of your plan and one of the biggest pieces of your plan. And so the windows, getting windows that are non-operable will help with efficiency within the building so that we don't have windows left open or trying to control the temperature in the rooms. And the new HVAC will have excellent ventilation. So it's no longer required to say that's how you're going to bring in ventilation. And in North Dakota, that's not, in our winter months when we have kids in the school, that's, not the ideal way to bring in fresh air is to open a window. So they would now help to have a more efficient building. The second piece is that they will be more efficient as a system, so a higher R value. And that will then help when you size your HVAC system, making sure that that system is sized accurately, because the engineers will be looking at your building envelope and how efficient your envelope is. So if we have old leaky buildings, the the heating system ends up having to be larger because they're accounting for the filtration of the outside cold air as that moves back and forth, or the loss of hot air. So that really aligns really well with your major piece of this project is the HVAC. So it does make sense. And like you mentioned, we know that they need to be replaced. Some rooms, it is even hazardous because they're propped up with books and won't stay open. And then there's a lot of things that get thrown out the window. So all of that together really makes sense to include it in this project and have it part of that HVAC.
Thank you.
With this 1484, this is an all-encompassing amount. So that's your engineers, that's your architects, that's your bond counsel. It's, all the pieces in there, your contingencies. So that would be the cost, right? There's not gonna be surprises.
Can you guys also touch on Century Code and why we need the engineers and the architects and everything in that, just for the public?
Yeah, so anytime you are using public dollars, you're required by North Dakota Century Code that it is engineered and especially with I think it's over $50,000, you're required to publicly bid it and to have competitive bid process. And then you are required to accept the low bidder unless there's some very extreme circumstance. You then, as the district, would have the best. Everyone has a chance, and it's the best value. With the engineering too, what it does is it protects your district. They realize you're using taxpayer dollars, and you want to make sure that what the contractor's installing is something that meets the code, meets the standards. It's all in place to protect you as a district and also your community and your taxpayers.
And you are required, I think it's 150,000. You have to file a facility plan with the state, which they're going to have to approve. And I believe the threshold is 150,000 that you have to hire an engineer, an architect, all that stuff. So that is required to do. You cannot do it without it.
All right, another change from our initial information we released to the public for feedback was that the interest rate that we had used to illustrate the tax impact was, I believe, initially 4%, because that is what is currently available on the open bond market. In this new concept that's incorporated in the ballot with the 51.24 mils, we have revised that, is that correct, to a 2%, because we expect that we certainly would apply for the state low interest loan, but there's no guarantee that we would be awarded that low interest loan.
So this 51.24 is if we were going out on the open bond market.
Oh, this is.
This
Okay.
is, but we do know the figures, we are able to do the 2%, so those numbers are available. It ends up being like 38 mils is what if we end up going at the 2%, but talking to Ann and PFM, we want to go with the highest amount, just so that we don't promise the voters something and they vote on the 38 mils and it ends up being the 51. So we're planning on applying for those. If this is approved and the state approves and everything goes, that we would apply for those low cost loans.
And then, go ahead.
Well, I think it's important to note too, that we wouldn't be guaranteed that 15 million. We could get a portion of that,
Right, yeah.
or be awarded that.
We
So
would ask for-
it's not an all or nothing. We could get a portion of that amount.
So on the first run that we received in our packet initially, wasn't it like $58?
I don't know.
50,
It was 38. Do you think it was
No,
38?
No, it was the first run on this question number 1, which is no longer in our packet.
it was 55.37 mils on that initial.
The initial one that came out in our
Yeah, the
packet.
one we were going out to the public or the community meeting.
I thought it was different in the packets too, because you
Okay.
uploaded a new one. I
Yes,
thought it was a
okay,
different amount in there, but I couldn't go back and look. 'cause it was
Yeah,
gone.
yeah, I tried. Scott, the PFM has been updating, as we've been sending them things, and Lori's been communicating with them. PFM and Scott, they've been bond council's been updating this as we've been going along
So
to make
we're
sure
still
it's
at
accurate.
4%.
Yeah, is it 4 or 4.5? Do you remember, Lori, which one Ann figured it at?
4.5 sounds right, but I'd have to double check with her.
They're trying to be very conservative on it so that we're not telling, the voters this is what it's gonna be, and then all of a sudden they get hit with something else.
Conservative, meaning that if there are any surprises, they should be good ones.
Right.
Right, and that's just it, and it's very common for your financial advisor, they're gonna put a little buffer. Cause similar to the inflation on construction, the bonds will be sold, not till next fall or maybe a year from now. So they just wanna account in case it went up a little bit, but really, the hopes would be if it goes down, that's a good tax savings for your district and your community.
And I think PFM's reputation is, they've been doing schools all over and.
They are Q1. Scott Wagner, who's with Artsy Stewart, he's the bond counsel. They are the people that schools work with. Both of these groups are the people that we work with. In our project. That was 10 years.
So my additional question is, and I'm pretty sure I've asked it before, but as a reminder, we have a 100-year-old building and we're talking about investing, well, between, with the kitchen being in the other building, but $12 million in a 100-year-old building. I think we have been guided by structural engineers to assure us that our building, particularly after we've done the reinforcement of the 3rd floor, is a sound building, and we are not throwing away money by investing $12 million in a 100-year-old building. But we do need to maintain it on the outside, including the tuck pointing and other things that come up. But I don't believe we have asked the question and have not been told that our building is not worthy of this kind of an investment. Correct?
Correct. Yep, and we had the electric or the structural engineer once again review it just before, I think that was this summer again, just one more time, just to make sure everything, it made sense for the district to continue to invest.
Are there any other questions?
Could we explain to the public why we can't get exact numbers for the vote? That we have to wait until after,
As far as like what parts of the plan are.
yeah, and like the exact numbers from bids and such.
Oh, that's a great, I'll let Lori explain that piece of it.
So yeah, at this point, the cost to get actual contractor bids, it would have to be fully engineered. And that will cost the district hundreds of thousands of dollars. So it's, I don't know the exact number, but it's significant. And before you have funding approved, that's a really big risk for the district to take, to go ahead and get it completely engineered and contractor bids to know the final number. The other thing is they wouldn't, the contractors today, I mean, I really doubt that they would hold their pricing even if you did go that route. Because once you get that, then you would have to call for an election. Then you would have to go through the referendum process. And there's a lot of risk in if it wasn't successful then, and you have all this money invested and you have to change your plan in any way. It's just not a good investment for the district and just too much risk. So we have, the budgets are vetted out and utilizing existing projects that we have been breaking down and considering, the location of the district and what we talked to vendors and contractors and just give the best price that we feel would really help the district or will be in line with what this would cost the district. And we've done, right now we have, we've done like $2 billion worth of construction over the last 7 years. I mean, that's a lot of construction that we're able to evaluate and use to help guide you guys.
And it's standard procedure to do the process the way we're doing it with the budget amount versus actual.
Very, very rare unless you guys had another funding source that could be a backup. Very rare to have a project fully designed and bid before funding was approved.
So that brings up the question for me that, let's say that the bond vote passes, we move forward, we get this engineered, and our $14.8 million maximum amount of bonds, we can't exceed that. Golly, what if it comes in at 16.5?
Mhm.
Then the board needs to make decisions to allocate, to prioritize. What would we do then?
So that's where your construction manager, they will, throughout the design process, they're going to continue to update that budget. So as we move through the design, there's 3 different phases. You have a better sense of where the cost of the project's going to end up. And they will be guiding you on, do we need to build in alternates during the design so that on bid day, you have an awardable project. So it fluctuates a little bit and that will also sense, where are we in June and July with contractor pricing? And those updates will help guide you as a district. So there aren't huge surprises at the end of the day and you have $2 million gap to try to figure out what to do. So that will be built into the design and bidding phases.
Sonia, I can just kind of speak to that a little bit, because that's exactly what happened in our project. And it's not uncommon, and I remember the term very well, they called it valued engineering, which means you cut stuff. So we went through and there were certain things, like Laurie said, alternates that we took out or whatever, but there were also some things that we knew that we wanted. So we looked for alternate ways to fund it. So we looked at,
The tax exempt.
The tax exempt lease bond was one way to do it. And then we also did a lease where we went through the local bank And we paid those obligations out of our general and our building fund over a period of 20 years. So we were able to keep the core of what we wanted, but we had to kick some stuff to the side. So that's how we handled it. And actually, I just had this conversation with our business manager the other day, kind of refresh my memory on it a little bit. And I mean, it's going to be some hard decisions. If that's what happens, this board's going to have to make some tough calls on how they're going to, what they want to do, and are they willing to commit general fund and or building fund dollars to this project down the road, and can you afford to do it? So those are all tough choices. It's not, you pray that it comes in lower. In our case, we had one general contractor bid the project, and that scared the heck out of us. But in the end, we were able to make it work. So you have to be creative. And that's where, PFM is really, really good about giving you advice and giving you alternate methods to fund projects and things like that. So that we worked with them, and it wasn't Ann at that time, but it was her predecessor, and he was great. They're really good to work with. They helped us through all that. So yes, that can happen. But it could go the other way.
Yeah, right? Yeah.
If it's a competitive bidding process, it could go the other way.
Yes.
Then you
That's
have
what
to
I wanted to
decide.
hear. Any other questions?
Maybe we should talk about if we come in way under bid, what would the excess money?
Then,
I think you should, because in that, pardon me, but I know Brian brought that up at a meeting, but that community action committee, that question did come up, and I think Brian addressed it, that they wouldn't spend any more or wouldn't do anything additional, right, or something like that. So that's a good discussion to have ahead of time, because it could happen. And so do you say the bids come in at 14 million, what do we do with that 840,000? Do we give it back to the taxpayers, or not levy it, I should say? Or do we say, oh, well, we have another project we'd like to do? I mean, that's something you really need to be ahead of and clear on, because that question could get asked if the bids come in under the estimate.
and I'm assuming, okay, Kirk, you know this, if we get those low cost loans from Shannon and I have in our researches, it's a pay for it, apply for the money to come back. They don't just give you all of that money and then you get to decide how you bid it. It's state controls, that you have to purchase something for your construction
I think it's
project.
on a reimbursement basis, if I remember right. And that's how that fund stays solvent, because there's, the allocation might be gone, but there's constantly schools paying into that fund because they completed phase one of this project. So now they just kicked in their whatever, so, but yeah, if I remember right, that's the way it operates.
Well, I think it's fine for this board to have the thought that, well, we wouldn't spend any more than what the bid is on the scope of the project that was approved. We can't, for example, I am not going to be on the board 2 years from now, but what I'm saying is that the board decides at that time, right? We could all vote right now, well, we're not spending any more than that, even if it comes in under. And I'm not suggesting that we want to spend more, but we can't really tie the hands of the future board.
Yeah. I think it's something that you wait and see how it plays out, but you need to be thinking about it, of what you want to do. But yeah, no, that's a good point that I don't think you want to say right now, but I think you want to be thinking about it. And at some point in time, the board needs to have a consensus, but that's when the bids come in, and that's when you decide. Because the other thing along the way, there could be, something, they're digging in pipes and stuff, and something bad happens, and all of a sudden, the I don't know factor really kicks in. So,
Yeah, and I would say you would make that final decision at the end of the project. I
Yeah.
really would advise you to, just wait until the project's 100% complete. Because that underground sewer pipe, what if you end up deciding, or what if you okay, you want to go a few more feet with that. And, you know, it'd be a little bit of an added cost, but it's the right thing to do at the time. You want to make sure you have that flexibility and it's still in alignment with what you're asking the voters to consider. So it's not like you're going to take it and do something completely, you know, go build a concession stand that you won't be allowed to do, but those funds, you know, might be needed to address something while you're doing the work that you have mapped out for the district.
All right, any other questions? Any other questions? So before we vote on this, so this vote will just be on the motion to approve the initial resolution for general obligation school building bonds as we have in front of us. And then we need to do another vote on the resolution calling for an election and with the attachment of the official ballot, just so we know what we are voting on at this moment and then our next step. Is that accurate?
Lori, am I correct? Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So, any other questions or discussion? I guess I would just add a note I made to myself last night when I was reviewing this is in reviewing the survey results. 88% of the survey respondents said they wanted this to go to a vote by March. So to me, this is not a hard vote. The hard work was deciding how to package it in the resolution, what to remove, what to put in. And, you know, by voting yes on this resolution, we're not approving the project. We're just putting it into the hands of the voters. And it evidently has, there's at least overwhelming support to vote on it. Maybe some of them want to vote, bring it to a vote so they can vote no. We don't know that. But I don't look at this as a hard vote.
I think it's good that we've got, given the public all the education that we could, and then we got that percentage back. Makes a person feel like all the hard work that we've done has been paying off.
And people are listening.
Yeah,
And likewise, it's a hard one to swallow, knowing that it is a lot of money for our taxpayers, particularly our ag landowners. And yet we have this down to what we think is needs. This is not fluff. And we can only finance it within the system of finance that we have. This is what we have. And we will continue to work with the statewide coalition to look for better solutions to ease burden on the local taxpayers. But this is what we have now, and time is of the essence.
Well, another thing I've noticed that you did not go to the max because we could be taxing at that 10%, but you did not. I mean, this is very much sticking to the needs, what people have told us, and all the feedback that we've gotten and the hard work we've done over the last months.
All right, any other questions, comments, discussion? Please call the roll.
Sheila Nagel. Yes. Monica Hengbuck. Yes. Brian Sire. Yes. Rhonda Dade.
Yes.
Sonny Meal.
Yes, the motion passes 5-0. Then I believe we move on. I would be seeking a motion to approve this document, the resolution calling a special election to vote on the question of approving the initial resolution for general obligation school building bonds and the accompanying official ballot. Is there such a motion? Heimbach moves. Is there a second?
second.
Sire seconds. All right, any discussion?
Just note of the date of the election that you'll be setting will be Thursday, March 14th, here at the central office, and the hours will be 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. So then we make sure that we, you know, are getting the largest window of opportunity for everybody in our community to vote.
There are poll workers.
Shannon and
I have 4 that have already committed to a 12-hour, well, it'll be more than 12 hours. Right. Yeah, I contacted the 5th and I haven't heard back.
I did reach out and they said, you can split the shifts as long as the shift isn't switching during, the counting of ballots, after the, full school. Which the 4 that have reached out so far said they would be willing to do. I just need to find 1 more or 2 applicants.
All right, I think, oh, and of course, you're not limited to voting in person from 7 AM to 7 PM. Voters can apply for and be, receive an absentee ballot to be submitted.
They first have to request, they have to complete an absentee application. And then they get an absentee ballot and it needs to, they can do that February 3rd. And it has to be postmarked before the day before the election. So March 14th is the election. Has to be either handed in to me or postmarked by March 13th
And where did they get the application?
by me.
Okay.
Yep.
So everybody knows.
In the school. Yep.
So they can stop by or they can email you, correct, and you can send it.
No, I will mail them the application. They can get the application online or I can email the application and they can send that back.
So in remembering having filled out absentee ballot applications with the county, you're able to mark on the top of your application if you want just the general or the primary or the school or all. And so it's possible that the county auditor may automatically have applications already. And I don't know if those expire after a certain cycle, but you might want to.
Yep. As soon as that was on my list to find out if anybody has between the city and county. And I think, I'm pretty sure the city contracts with the county, so it probably all be. See if there's anybody that wants it.
Okay. Is there any other discussion on the motion for the resolution calling a special election? Any other discussion? Any other questions, comments, or discussion? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Brian Sayer,
Yes.
Sheila Nagel,
Yes.
Rhonda Day,
Yes.
Monica Heimbach,
Yes.
Sonia Neal.
Yes, motion passes 5-0.
Sonia, did someone approve the motion and second it?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay,
Monica
sorry.
Heimbach moved and Brian Sayer second.
Thank you.
Thanks,
All right, I
thanks for
missed
checking though.
that.
Sometimes
It's happened before.
Just didn't want to miss anything, but okay, good. I missed that. Thank you.
Or more likely, somebody did make a motion and second it, and then I asked for it again. More likely. Okay, so we're all good. Everything, we voted on everything related to the facilities discussion. No additional work or discussion is needed on that.
Nope, now the work starts.